The studio lights of The Tonight Show starring Johnny Carson glowed softly that night, but something felt different in the air. Behind the curtain stood John Wayne, the Duke, the man who had stared down outlaws, ridden through deserts, and faced death without blinking in countless westerns, a symbol of American strength, a legend who never seemed to tremble. But tonight his hands did. When Johnny Carson introduced him, the audience erupted. Applause thundered through the studio like a cavalry charge. Wayne stepped out with that familiar slow, steady walk, shoulders squared, chin lifted, a cowboy's silhouette against the spotlight. He smiled, but his eyes told another story. Carson greeted him warmly, joking about horses and Hollywood, and Wayne played along at first. His deep voice rolled across the stage, steady and strong. The audience laughed. The Duke was still the Duke. Then Carson gently shifted the tone. "John," he said quietly, "you've been through a lot these past few years. How are you really doing?" The room grew still. Wayne leaned back in his chair. For a moment he stared at the floor. This wasn't a movie set. There was no script, no director calling cut, just silence and truth waiting to be spoken. He had battled cancer. He had lost part of his lung. Doctors had told him to slow down, to step away from the saddle. But John Wayne didn't know how to quit. He had built a career on portraying invincible men. Admitting weakness felt like betraying the myth. But this wasn't about myth anymore. He cleared his throat. "You spend your life playing tough guys," he said slowly, "and people start thinking you are one. Sometimes you start believing it yourself." The audience didn't laugh this time. He spoke about fear, not of death, but of becoming fragile, of disappointing fans who saw him as a hero, of waking up in a hospital bed and realizing that even legends are human. Carson didn't interrupt, he simply listened. Wayne's voice softened. "I've buried friends. I've watched this town change. And when you're lying there at night, you start thinking about what really mattered." His eyes shimmered under the studio lights. It wasn't the box office. It wasn't the applause. It was the people who stood by you when the cameras weren't rolling. There was a pause so deep you could hear someone shift in their seat. For the first time, America didn't see a cowboy. They saw a man. A father, a friend, a soul who had carried the weight of strength for so long that he had forgotten he was allowed to feel. Carson, usually quick with wit, simply nodded. "You've meant a lot to a lot of people," he said gently. Wayne looked out at the crowd, not as fans, but as witnesses to his truth. "I just hope," he replied, voice cracking slightly, "that when it's my time, folks remember I tried to do my job, and I tried to do it honestly." The applause that followed wasn't wild. It was tender, respectful. When the segment ended, Wayne rose slowly. The swagger was still there, but now it felt different. Not invincible, just brave. Because sometimes the strongest thing a man can do is let the world see his scars. And that night, on national television, John Wayne didn't ride into the sunset. He stepped into vulnerability. And somehow he looked even tall.